Welcome to the Gateway Podcast, broadcast live from United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. I'm your host this evening, C.L. Thomas. You've been listening to Sean Kelly with Into the Night, right here on United Public Radio Network, 107. And I want to say a special thank you to everybody at United Public Radio Network for making this broadcast possible. Tonight, the great grandnephew of Bram Stoker and New York Times and international best-selling co-author of Dracula the Un-Dead and Dracul joins me to discuss one of the most spiritual places on earth and one of my favorite places, Transylvania. During my own travels through the Carpathian Mountains, I had such a unique experience to see firsthand quaint villages steeped in just mysterious everything. Like everything over there is so mysterious. Also, later on tonight, Maria Smith may be joining me. She's the founder of Mysterious Adventures Tours, so stay tuned for that. I took a bit of a break this summer, I have to admit, from the paranormal. I had planned on putting out magazines and a book and a whole lot of other things, but I had to just step back and take a break for a little bit. This fall, I do plan on getting back to the regular program with a new book release. More on that later. And there is going to be a big relaunch of Erie Expeditions with a new sponsor. Stay tuned for that. And some other projects that I have frankly put off all summer. So I have to admit, moving from another state, from Las Vegas, it's a big deal. I had to de-escalate a little bit from Las Vegas. And I just got really busy with work projects this year and a lot of travel. I normally don't travel this much for the summer, but this year I did. So news for me, I just bought a new house in this little itty bitty town. It's probably about 40 minutes outside of Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is really exciting. I never dreamed in a million years that I would move to Cheyenne in Wyoming. So this is all new. The house was built in 1920, and it has a couple of different added sections to the house over the years. It is sitting on the actual trail, the Oregon Trail. It sits right on the trail. So there's a lot of historical stuff around this house, and I just really look forward to seeing what I dig up on this property. There's wood fireplaces on the ground floor, and it's got a little workshop in the back, and it has, it used to be like an old stained glass studio. So I plan on changing that into a pottery and photography studio, of course. But that all said, it's hard to move to a new state. You have to learn all of the nuances. You have to learn basically all the new people. This town is very different in that it's very small. Right? It's not Las Vegas. Las Vegas, you can pretty much get lost. And it's weird because I went to the same gym in Las Vegas for 6 years. And this is not one of those cheapy gyms. This is like one of those club type style gyms where you pay a little bit of extra money and it comes with all the amenities, et cetera, et cetera. There's a reason why you pay money for that. But the last week, the last month that I went to that gym, and the same person, the same guy checked me in every single day for 6 years. And do you know he didn't even know my name? That's Las Vegas for you. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm glad to be moving away, but at the same time, now I'm moving to a town where everybody's going to know you. Everyone's going to know me. So, and I don't mean that in a facetious way. What I mean is the librarian, like I like to go to the library, that librarian's going to know who I am. There's a gym here. So I just joined the gym and everybody in there knows my name now. It's just, you see where I'm going with this? So it's hard to get used to that kind of thing. But at the same time, I'm really looking forward to it. But anyway, getting back to our topic tonight. I want to welcome Dacre Stoker. He's the great grandnephew of Bram Stoker, and he's a New York Times and best-selling author. Let me get him on here and let me stop rambling because, guys, I'll ramble all night long. So, Dacre, welcome to the show.
Hey, Crystal, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
good. It sounds like you're getting acclimatized.
I
Yeah.
yes, very much
Cool.
so.
Good for you. Yeah. No, that's cool. I mean, I know it's a big deal to uproot, especially after 6 years in Vegas, to be somewhere new. But that's the spirit, right? Is to
That's the spirit.
try stuff new and refresh yourself, get a new, fresh outlook on life. Good for you.
Yeah, it's exciting, but it's I'm a little nervous about. I feel like it's one of those towns where everyone's going to know your business, and here I am, like I'm into witchcraft and all this other stuff. It's like, how are they gonna? What if they all find out?
Well, maybe they'll join your tribe. Who knows? And maybe they'll want to be. You want to hang out with them.
Well, tonight we're going to discuss one of my favorite places, Transylvania. You have a winery over there. You've written numerous books about this place. You're always taking tours, so I thought you'd be the perfect guy to talk about all of this stuff.
Well, yeah, this is God. I've been going there now for 10, 12 years. And on this upcoming trip with Maria Schmidt of Mysterious Adventure Travels, it'll be number 16 is my 16th visit to the country. And what's cool about it, when you really think, is I got into this whole thing to follow in the footsteps of my great-granduncle Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula, but he traveled a fair amount, came to America 8 times, but he never went to Romania. But he wrote a book, Dracula, that people can't believe that he went there. He didn't go there because he had got all the details right. But I've gone there now to sort of double check and fact check Uncle Bram. But in the process, Crystal, I found the books that he used for his research. He actually listed all the books in the back of his notes. His notes live in the Rosenbach Museum in Philadelphia. So I can actually look at the notes. I look at the books. I go to the London Library where he checked out all the books. They're all still there. And because I'm kind of a little bit over the top on this, I've purchased first editions of the same book so I can read them, take notes of them. And when I go on these tours, I go to the exact same place and I read what Bram read about Sigishwara, about Brasov, about Cluj, Kronstadt, all the places where he set the story. Other travelers went there, and I get to read what he learned about it, and then I get to read to them how he integrated that, wove it into actually the novel. So I love doing it. I know you've been to the country a couple of times yourself. It does have some real special, really cool sides to it. Very isolated areas, a lot of different religions, superstitions, practices, all kind of blend into a very unique sort of a whirlpool of superstition and beliefs that all sort of boil up in this really cool country.
So, Dacre, I know this interview is between you and me, but I have a friend who just popped in, and I'd like to bring her in if that's okay with you.
Oh, good. Yes, please.
Hey everybody, this is Maria Smith. She is the founder of Mysterious Adventure Tours.
Thank you. To make a correction, you're not a friend. You're a very good friend. So thank you, Crystal, and another good friend, Dacre. I'm like surrounded by incredible friendships. So we're gonna continue.
Good to see you again, Maria.
You as well.
Maria, when you first started going to these to Romania, were you guys ever scared in any way to go there?
Well,
this question is for both of you.
I'll just go ahead and say Romania was our very first tour for Mysterious Adventure Tours. We had a little wonky one up in England, but that doesn't really count. And Richard will be offended by that, but that was my only guest that traveled with me on that one wonky little trip. Our first real tour was in Romania, and was I scared? Was I frightened? I don't think so. I was more ecstatic about the opportunity to explore Romania. As you know, my husband's mother was born in Romania, so I've always wanted to go there. But I fell into that little group of people that thought that Romania or Transylvania was only about Dracula. That's it, nothing else. There was just, you land in Bucharest and then you zip over to the castle and you're done. You're done. God, I'll tell you, Romania and I'm sure Dacre will tell you this better than I can because he's been there a hell of a lot of times more. I think I've been there like 4 times. He beats me by a long shot.
Who rented a car, and we had a very, very super organized itinerary. So I knew what we were getting into, but I was scared in a way of how would people look at the first Stoker to arrive, knowing that, you know, their hero of 7.5 years, Vlad the Impaler, his name has been turned into, and his reputation turned into, a Hollywood icon. And some people regret that. Some people aren't happy with it. Other people, oh, this is great, let's cash in on it. And so the whole vampire thing and Vlad the Impaler thing, I'm wondering, are they going to blame me and my family, or are they going to say, hey, this is pretty cool, what do you want to learn? So all that was sort of bundled up into excitement, a little bit of anxiety, but we traveled the country for 12 days, went all through the place, could not agree more with what Maria is saying. It is a perfect mixing pot of Germany, Italy, Hungary, and also a little bit of the sort of the Islam world, because there's a lot of Ottoman Empire that had come over. So it is a very unique mixing sort of pot of religions, cultures, beliefs, language, but mostly a lot of people speak English. And you know what? They're super friendly and they love North Americans. So after about one day, all that nervousness and it was gone, because it was such a remarkably beautiful country and welcoming country. So happy to see people here to learn about their country. So now with Maria's tours, she recreates that same vibe. She has a local guy, Vlad Blaj, who is the boots on the ground tour leader.
That's amazing.
So yeah, you got your man there taking care of everything for you.
I'll tell you, that's another, and I was going to volunteer that information that the first time I went to Romania, I was personally taken care of by Vlad Blaj, and he is still our tour experience guide, we call them. We don't call them tour guides, we call them experience guides, because he does more than touring. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't appreciate Romania as much as I did when I left Romania. You know, he just made it, you know this, Crystal, you traveled with him. He just was able, with a good sense of humor and a nice method of connecting with people, perfect English, but to connect history with the mystery. He was not, when I first met him, he was not, I mean, he was intrigued. He was very much intrigued by spirituality, by the esoteric, by the, you know, what we call the legends of the land. And he says, you know, no one's ever done this. And I go, I know. Are you okay with that? He says, I love it. I said, I'm going to dive into it. And he was able to accommodate what his standard tour guiding was and made it into an esoteric experience. And I think that's what really, Dacre, you can almost understand that because you've met God. You can almost see how I was coached into it very, very nicely.
Well, Maria, thank you so much for stopping by and showing up.
I'm looking forward to hearing all about what you're doing right now.
Do you have a tour right now?
Right now, this very moment, do you have a tour?
Yeah, for Romania.
I do. Not right now. I'm in my house, which is haunted. I do. We do have 3 tours. It's a little different because we're trying to accommodate to what the consumer is wanting. So we do have the 12 classical tour, 12 days classical tour that is packed full of everything wowsies about Romania. And then we have the 5-day tour, which makes it a little bit more, it brings out the highlight of what Romania is known for Halloween. So it's really like a Romania Halloween crash course. And then we have which each of them also entails and brings into, is our very, very proud vampire ball, and which is going to be held right inside Bram's castle, which is Dracula's castle, and we're the only at this moment, the only private company that is able to hire and just, and the castle is ours. You know, for a ball, for dinner, for exploring, for ghost hunting, whatever you want to do in the castle, it's ours. So
that's really cool.
So we have 3 prize points, and I think it's really very, very cool. So yeah, we do. October 23rd, I believe, it's our launch date. So we're going to get you there too.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Dacre, I want to ask you about Vlad tapes, because you brought up that America not America, but Bram Stoker kind of marred his name, so to speak. Was he ever a hero?
Yeah. So let's get the record straight here. So
Was he a good guy?
Vlad Dracula III, as he was known within his family and in his country, was the son of Vlad Dracula II. Vlad Dracula II was a member of the Order of the Dragon. This was a sort of a unit that was created by, much like the Crusaders were, to protect Christian Europe. So this Order of the Dragon was created. Vlad's father was a member of it, and because they used the dragon as their symbol, and there's also these different countries, different languages, meaning dragon and devil were very similar. So a son of somebody who was Order of the Dragon, Order of the Dracul, you added the A at the end of their name, Dracula. So son of somebody who was a Dracul was a Dracula. So we have this guy, mid-1400s, that had a very turbulent history. He got control after his father was killed, after he was held by the Ottomans as a hostage, came back and had about a 2-month reign. He didn't know how to hold power very well. He then learned how to gain power, learned how to make alliances with the Austrian-Hungarians, with the Germans, and so on. So it was a period in history between about 8 years that this guy was ruling over a course of about 20 years. During that time, he was a hero because he was holding off the massive Ottoman Empire, who had much larger armies, had firepower, and they were slowly encroaching upon Christian Europe. And Vlad would make alliances, as I said, with the Austrian-Hungarians, with the Germans, and that was the key thing, because all those guys had to band together to hold off. But Vlad also did something very interesting. He pretty much invented guerrilla warfare. What you talked about earlier was the Carpathian Mountains, mountain passes. This made it very easy for someone with a small army to hold off a massive army. Like in those days, they used to all line up on the plains and come together and crash, and the bigger army would win. No, Vlad was cagey. He figured out how to do all kinds of subservient little types of battle tactics. So he was a hero in his life. Now, my great-granduncle, who was looking through books when he was researching and needed somebody from the old days that had a turbulent and violent background, not necessarily a vampire. That was obviously fake. That was a myth. But he found that Vlad Dracula was known, his nickname, as being the devil because of the atrocities that he did in order to hold off the Ottomans. So he did impalement, he did all these things. So he got the nickname Tepesh as the impaler. He didn't call himself that. That was the nickname given to him by the people that hated him. He even did that to some of the Germans in his own country who didn't pay taxes. So he was a law and order kind of guy. But Bram needed him to be a real person in the country, which Transylvania was, even though he was from Wallachia, which was the province next door. So Bram moved him from Wallachia up to Transylvania because a young lady named Emily Gerard, a Scottish lady, did all this research about Transylvania when she lived there, wrote a book all about the superstitions, mentioned Strigoi, Nosferatu, all the vampire lore that Bram needed. And he said, well, that's simple. This is a book of fiction. I'm going to move Vlad Dracula here. He's now going to be a count. He was a prince here, but now he's my fictional count. So that creates a wonderful modern day mystery. We've got old historical people. We have myths of vampires in this country, and Bram conveniently combined them to be historical based fiction. So to this day, people still love to say, well, he wasn't a vampire or he wasn't here. But hey, guys, it's a book of fiction that my great-granduncle is still tricking you on. Do the history. And that's why when we go on these tours, Maria has people lined up like Vlad who bring us to these different sites, to these different castles. And we get these tour people telling us, was Vlad Dracula here? Was Corvin, Prince Hanindwara, was Corvin here? Where was Prince Charles, who's now King Charles? Where was he? So we get a really detailed history in the 5 or the 12-day tours because it's all right in front of us. And we actually walk through it, we drive through it, we sleep in it, we eat in it, and we get to experience it all firsthand. And when you're lucky, you get me to then read chapters from the book and say, we're standing in the place where Bram Stoker wrote about in this novel. Or this film was here. There's even film sites we go to. Wednesday was in Catacuzuno Castle. Nicolas Cage was filming Knight Rider in Corvin Castle. So we get to see all that cool stuff.
Can you guys talk a little bit about some of the mysticism that's going on in Romania?
You want to go first, Maria, or do you want me to go? The witches pond, maybe?
Yeah. Why don't you kick it off?
Okay.
Because your first experience with the witches was on our tour. Was that correct?
No, exactly. Let me say.
So that's a good fresh view. Mm-hmm.
Well, while I'm talking, you then fill in the gaps, Maria, because this is interesting to me. And my point of reference, Crystal, is obviously from 15 years of research of Bram. He learned, you can believe it, what directed Bram Stoker to set his story in Transylvania was Oscar Wilde's mother, who wrote a book about the ancient superstitions of Ireland. And in that book, which was in Bram's own library, and I've seen it, she says the Irish superstitions about witchcraft, magic, werewolves, and vampires are exactly similar to those of Transylvania. And Madame Gerard has written a recent account of it. So he goes and looks up Madame Gerard, who's written Transylvanian superstitions in the same magazine that Bram wrote in. He reads that one and finds out that she has now written a whole book about it called Land Beyond the Forest, which translates to Transylvania. This lady is kind of like you, Crystal, has a little bit of witch background to her. She's moved to Cluj, Hermannstadt, northern Transylvania, because her husband's in the Austrian-Hungarian Empire's cavalry, and she's bored because he's out doing army stuff. So she, on her horse, with her servant and her dog, go through all the little towns, all the little villages up in the mountains, and starts interviewing people. Now, if she had a camera like you, she'd be taking photos, but she didn't. She took sketches.
Like I even have a dog.
I know. I got to turn you on to this book because she interviewed people of religion, people of witchcraft, and she found that this was a massive sort of whirlpool of many different beliefs and superstitions. And when she brought that out in the book, Bram Stoker jumped on it and said, it's not just vampire. There's werewolf, there's witchcraft, there's all sorts of belief in the occult. This made it a very interesting country. Now, they also have very strict religion, different types of Orthodox religions, which is very similar, in belief system and practice and so on. So one of the things, now that's the background, one of the things that on the Mysterious Adventure tours is that Vlad and Maria have hired these real witches that do practice witchcraft, and they bring us to very sacred spots in this forest outside of Bucharest, where they believe Vlad Dracula was killed in his final battle, and it all lines up with historical records. Very sacred pond here, and they do these rituals, and the rituals are to help cleanse the visitors, help us better understand ourselves, and it's very sensitive. It's not goofy at all. It's like, this is the type of thing we know that people really do and really believe in, and we're very lucky to have that bestowed upon us. And it's a very sensitive evening. I'd call it a service. So that's a part of it. But the other part was everywhere we go, we meet people that take us to interesting haunted forests and ask them generally, what do you feel here? What do you believe goes on here? So it's not hokey at all. It's a real belief system that some of the people in our trip really like to experience. Some people choose not to, but that's what's wonderful about these trips. There is it gives you the opportunity to believe it, to feel it, to live it, and experience it. So Maria, I've teed it up for you. Anything else that I've left off?
You absolutely did. I'll go back to Cluj and talk about the most haunted forest. It's considered with rivals the suicide forest in Japan is the most haunted forest in the world. And I've been there 4 times, and every single time I experience something extraordinary that I cannot explain. Anything from extraterrestrial or phantoms like, or just weird, just plain weird. The way the animals work there, the way they, I can sit here. We can have a whole show with this, Crystal, on what your experiences at the haunted forest in Romania and Cluj. Going back to the Witch's Pond, this was a really incredible place that we bumped into when we started creating and crafting our tours in Romania, because I wanted something outside of vampiric mode, right? And Romania is known a lot for its witchcraft and some of those type of activities. And we met these women, and they're well known, but they really are, how should I say, they're not performers. They are the real thing. They are the witches.
They are the real thing.
They are, and most of them don't even speak English, and they're a gypsy background, and a lot of their traditions from that Gypsinian, culture comes in.
They're a bit scary, too.
It is very scary. It's something that you'll see. Now, the Witch's Pond in itself, let's pull out the witches, let's pull out everything, I called you Vlad, Dacre. Like Dacre said, is where Vlad Tepes met his demise. He was thought that he was beheaded there, and his head was, brought over to whoever, and that's where Dacre can tell us where it is, but they don't know where the body is, and they're, is it in the pond? Was it buried? There's a mystery there. But I will tell you that lots of folks have tried to explain the activity of this pond. Animals don't drink from it. They don't. They, usually when you have a body of water, animals will go and drink from the pond. They don't even go near that pond. People are told that people that go into the pond don't come out. It's got a lot of weirdness. These are all legends. But are they legends? Legends come out of somewhere. They're just not made up, right? So there's a lot of very mysterious, strong, mysterious components on this pond. And to have that alongside with the witches, and then we are participants of this, holding torches and doing all this stuff, it's pretty dang amazing. It really is.
I went out there with you guys, and everybody was pretty serious. We're all standing around this pond. It's pitch black out. It's foggy, so you really can't see, 5 feet in front of your face. And they have these torches going around where they were going to do this ritual. And I even forget what the ritual was about, but there was some kind of ritual, and we're all sitting around, and they're doing this in their language, Romani. And I don't know, at one point, like, everything was dead still, right? There was no wind, no breeze, nothing, not even like crickets or anything, no frogs, no crickets. This is a pond, guys.
Right.
Right? There's no sound. And then all of a sudden, this big gust of wind comes out of they call in the spirits, and this big gust of wind comes out of nowhere. And one of the witches says to us, we're going to do our ritual, and then we want to leave because the spirits are upset. Do you remember that, Maria? It really,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, it was so surreal.
And they were very serious about it. They were like, let's get the hell out of here. I mean, Romanian style, you know. But absolutely true. There's something very powerful in that pond, like you said. It doesn't contain the noises of nature. Nature does not respond or interact with this pond. This pond is feared. It is feared by nature. That's the best way to explain this activity. Like, you know, there are other witches that come in. So it's not just, these are not the witches that we have, the most famous witches in Romania. That's how they classify themselves. But others come in. That little pond is very active with a lot of witchcraft. So who knows? Is that part of what makes it so powerful? Is all these witches come here constantly. Is it a coincidence, or is it by choice, or is it like they're just following each other? I don't know. But we're not talking about the last decade. We're talking about many, many decades, possibly even hundreds of years, that there have been rituals at this pond, stemming from the fact that they believe this is where Vlad Tepes was beheaded. I want to mention something back, if you don't mind going back a few minutes, when you talked about whether Vlad Tepes, the Impaler, is revered or how it's. We happened to be there one day, and it was Romanian Children's Day, and it was absolutely delightful to see all these children. They had the holidays off from school, and all the kids were celebrating. They all were dressed like Vlad Tepes, the Impaler. It was just remarkable. So, does that tell me that there's a certain amount of a hero factor connected to Vlad, and it's ingrained with children, and they were very proud to dress like Vlad Tepes, the Impaler. Very fascinating, because that's when I was pretty much convinced that Romania does have a special soft heart and maybe appreciation for Vlad, and for that reason they're not speaking, you know, a Middle Eastern language, because he saved them from the Ottomans. So he was a brilliant warrior. He was a vicious warrior. He got the job done, you know, and he's so respected, even the children on Children's Day dressed up like him.
That's interesting. You know, there are 6 places, I think, that all claim to be the burial site of Vlad. Why don't they know where he's actually buried?
So I can tell you this. I've been to 2 of them, Snagoff Monastery and Comana Monastery. So Maria is absolutely right that, you know, when he finally met his demise, nobody's really sure if he was assassinated by his own people because of allegiances switching between the different factions of militia that he had put together to fight the Ottomans, or was it the Ottomans? Because there's so many different, you know, moving parts, let's say, in that battle. So definitely they say his head was taken back to Constantinople to show the Sultan, we finally got this guy. But where the body laid, we don't know, because what was traditional is he was so highly regarded that it was like, well, at least we can save his body. It needs to be buried somewhere for respect. And very close to that is this witch's pond. There was also the monastery of Comana, which is very close to that. So I've been there. I had some locals take me there. We sort of did it undercover because they didn't want to think that, oh, here's Dacre Stoker. He's going to popularize the whole thing and make a big deal about it. I was just interested. So we sort of, you know, went in. I didn't have fancy clothes on, you know, just said, well, we're just here to look around. We didn't say we were with any kind of a tour. And the guy said, well, we do have him buried here, but we're not going to show anybody until it's properly built, this sort of visitor center. Well, when we left, we drove along the road and there was a massive billboard. This is the final resting place of Vlad Dracula. He will be risen here. So I was like, wait a sec. So, you know, on one hand, the head monk of the monastery is like, no, we can't show you. We don't want you to desecrate. than the billboard. And then we go to Schnagoff Monastery, which is actually a monastery that is very high up in the hierarchy of the church and these monasteries. And so it's like, well, this is the most powerful place. It would make sense that Vlad would have been brought here because of his high standing at the time. And there's a beautiful altar. There's a grave site. There's these candles burning, perpetual candle, nice homage. But they say he's not here either because, we wouldn't have him right in the middle of this. And by the way, back in 1931, the government was curious and they dug this up and they didn't find his bones underneath. They just found some animal bones and some buttons from the era when he was died. So it's possible that his body was removed from there. So those are two local ones. And then just in this last week, which is really interesting, a group in Venice, Italy had emerged a few years ago saying, we believe he's in this particular location. And we've found the history. There's this big relief over a grave, and it's a dragon, and it has to be Order of the Dragon because this is what he was. And I think his illegitimate daughter came here. And so this small group of Italian historians basically fabricated the whole story. And this past week, it was just debunked publicly by the mayor of this town, saying this was only to drive tourism, and I'm ashamed that it went on this long, and he has no connection. They had contacted me because of my standing, saying, hey, we'd love you to get involved with this. We know you go to Romania. We know you've got, you're on the news. Would you back this? I said, let me see your evidence. And there was just story. And I said, well, why don't you go in and do DNA evidence? Why don't you open the thing up? It's now possible to do DNA. And then they went dark on me, like, oh no, that makes too much sense. That would have proved it, right? So right. I just basically backed off, and I'm really quite happy that the answers come out, and it was somebody else, like the mayor of this town outside of Venice, has put an end to it. So those are the only three places, Crystal, that I know about, and the possible Witch's Pond. So if there's any more, I'd love to hear it. What kind of skinny do you have on the final resting place of Vlad Dracula?
In my backyard.
Your yard?
My backyard. No.
Did you sneak him home with you in your suitcase? Come on. You don't like when you do that.
Before we introduce, because I know Crystal has where the body is.
She's got that thing going.
I do want to say that's very interesting. I didn't hear about the debunking on the Venice story. I think of course I shared it with you, like 1,000 people probably shared it with you as well. But that's interesting how people can abuse history, right? When it's
you hear that stuff all the time, though. That kind of stuff happens. Like Goldfield is a perfect example of that. Everything you've heard in paranormal about Goldfield is incorrect. It's all fabricated stuff, and it was all made up in the 60s and 70s to drag tourists in from Las Vegas. So they came up with all these stories. There's fake tombstones, like the guy eating paste. I hate to break it to you guys, that's fake. There's nobody buried under there. It comes from an old newspaper script from like 1910, and it was used as it was a joke. And so back in like the 80s, when they were trying to rehab the town a little bit and bring tourism in, they dug all those old stories up and made tombstones and made it real, and they're not real. It's fabrication.
Well, let me tell you something about Romania that is real. And one day, Maria, you and I are going. Okay? And that is, Bram Stoker left map coordinates to where he placed his fictional Castle Dracula. So we know that Castle Dracula that we go to our amazing party is the castle that Bram Stoker looked at in the 3 books and described it exactly as that for his novel. So it is, there is Bran Castle in the town of Bran in 3 books, one by Gerard, one by Bonner, one by Mattucelli, and it was called Toursburg. Bram described it exactly as it looked in that book. So that's the connection to Bran Castle. Vlad, he may easily have been there because it was on the corner. It's actually on the border between Wallachia and Transylvania. It was a border crossing. And during Vlad's reigns of 7.5 years, he was very concerned about getting his tax money from people going across the border, because the taxes were to build an army to hold off the Ottomans. So it's very possible that he was visited there. It's also possible, they say, he might have been held prisoner when at one point he was captured by the Austrian-Hungarians who didn't like what he was doing. So there is no question there is a connection at Bran to the fictional and the real Vlad Dracula. However, the Borgo Pass is a real place. It's actually north of Cluj, which is, come on. Then there's Bistrica. So Bistrica is where Jonathan Harker goes, between Cluj, Bistrica, and then in the Borgo Pass. It's a real place. And very close to that are these map coordinates. It's on an old volcano. Now, I've been there, much like these weird trips that you talk about, going to the witch's pond and mist and everything. I will tell you privately what happened to me and my son and the mountain guide when the weather changed and it was like something was holding us off. But we finally got to the top of this old volcano, and spoiler alert, there is no castle there. There didn't need to be, but it was a volcano. The volcano had blown its top 1 million years ago. Volcanoes back in the day, portals to hell, the home of the devil. Mm-hmm. So this is why Bram put it there. So when Bram read about Vlad Dracula in 2 books being named as the devil, and because he was Order of the Dragon, Order of the Devil, it made total sense that the castle would be on an old volcano. So that's what Bram Stoker did to merge. So it is equally as interesting to me as we've got mystery about the final resting place of Vlad Dracula. We've got mystery of the connections between Bran Castle and the location. And funnily enough, in Scotland, where Bram wrote the book, is a castle called Slains Castle that has the exact same interior layout as Bram describes in his fictional castle that he placed over in northern Transylvania. So he merged all sorts of things together. And this country, this Transylvania province, is the perfect location, the melting pot of superstition, beliefs, occult, beautiful scenery, massive mountains. And let me tell you, folks, the fog does roll in at times, and the lightning does go off at times, and the wolves do howl. They've got the highest population of wolves in all of Europe. They've got a massive bear population. Why? Because they've got beautiful forests, virgin forests that have not been all chopped down now to make IKEA furniture for the rest of Europe. It's wonderful. Really, they're very proud of it, and they're holding out. That's why there's so Transylvania is not only got great wine growing, but it's sort of a vegetable refuge. It is the breadbasket of Europe because not very dense population and lots of agriculture, and these beautiful mountains that get snow on the top, and so therefore great irrigation into all these beautiful fields. So we drive around and go to these small towns up in the mountains. You're eating incredibly good fresh food.
Really good food.
It's great food.
Some of the best food I've had.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And their little beverages are not bad either, right?
No, the blanket's not bad either. But you guys, 2 more questions for you, and then we got to wrap this up. I do want to get, because you mentioned cult, I do want to talk about the Dracula culture, or the vampire culture, I should say there. I know Bucharest, you got people walking around, there's vampire bars, or, people go there for the vampire. Are there real vampires? I think I saw somewhere where, I think it was in a documentary, if I'm not mistaken, where they actually dug up a body that had a stake through the heart.
Okay, I can talk about that in modern day. In 2004, in Martina de Sus, there really was a ritual, 2004, where a young lady got, she got ill because her father had got very sick and died. And then within a day or two, the daughter got sick. So the townsfolk couldn't understand why this young girl got sick. And they immediately switched back to superstition, thinking that the soul of the father had come out and started taking the life out of the young girl, which is exactly how predominantly all around Eastern Europe and many other places, and in New England as well with tuberculosis, people misunderstood germ disease, germ theory, contagious disease. And so what did these people do in Maratina de Sus? They went out at night and exhumed the body, cut open the chest, took out the heart, burned it at a crossroads, took the ashes from the burnt heart, and went and fed it to the young girl in it like a tea mixture, and she recovered. Okay, so what I just described is actually very true, and it's actually on a PBS special that I was involved in as a consultant and also as an interviewer, called Secrets of the Dead Vampire Legend. You can check it out. Now, that's a modern day vampire ritual. What I just described has been found in different places in Serbia, Belgrade, lots of places in this area when people didn't understand germ theory. And so that's why Emily Gerard found it in Transylvania. And so it is something that people don't freak out about. It's what used to happen. And that's how the stories start. Every myth begins with some degree of truth.
I do want to mention that one of the stops that we have is the 12-day tour, the traditional tour. We've been there a couple of years, and Dacre, I'm not sure if you got to this one last year, at Jalava prison in Bucharest. And it was one of the places that held, his name was Ion Remuru. He's a notorious Romanian serial killer and a veterinary student who terrorized Bucharest between 1970 and 1971. He was arrested in May of 1971. He was held, tried, and ultimately condemned to death, spending his final detained days at Jalavia prison. So I don't know why they called him the vampire of Bucharest, whether it's his format of killing, etc. I don't have the exact amount of bodies he serial killed. But I will tell you that Jalava prison is to be absolutely inspected. It's one of the most haunted places I've been to. Incredible energy, incredible. We got so much evidence there. It's still a prison, it's a working prison, but the piece that's historical is empty. So we have to give up a lot of our, concessions to get inside. Security is very, very high. But he was known as the Bucharest vampire. So something else kind of fun to do, to think about. But Dacre's completely correct. It starts with something that happened historically that's unexplained, and they use their cultural logic, provincial logic, to explain it. So because everybody needs to explain that mystery, it just can't be unexplained. It has to have, causative, a root cause, right? And so, yeah.
Let me just say one more thing, because Maria's triggered something in my mind. The people, and it's not just this part of the world, but it's very concentrated in this part of the world. They do have very complex mourning rituals, because their belief system, exactly as Maria said, involves making sure that those people who die go through the proper procedures, to be laid out, to be mourned, to have coins put over their eyes, to do certain things to make sure that this person has a safe passage into heaven and doesn't get stuck in purgatory or go to hell if the living family does the wrong thing. So it's part of the respect that people have for the dead, to make sure that they take care of them, not just during the life, not just when they're sick, but when they actually pass, that they go through the right rituals and think about them, pray for them, so that they can go on and have a happy afterlife. If you don't, then they will become mischievous souls not at rest. This is where the strigoi comes from, mischievous souls. The vampire comes from something where that soul not at rest actually has a beef with somebody that needs to seek some sort of revenge because they've been wronged, and then they come and actually take the life from them, either that, like the movies have created, or Bram Stoker's book has created, sucking the blood from them. So it is much more complicated than just our more simple way. The Irish have very similar type processes, and so they also in New Orleans. We have wakes, we have these funeral services where we celebrate and so on. That's all part of what happens after we die, to pay proper homage and make sure people have the right passing so their souls can rest in peace.
It's all so very interesting, I remember being in one of the small villages, and I always forget the name of this village, but in one of the houses, or in several houses, I should say, they have the sigils written all over the outside of the gates and things, and it's to keep those spirits that are lost and out from coming in. So
yeah, it's very normal. You'll see all these different little types of things in places. You'll see garlic. You'll see all sorts of things that are not spectacular, but it's very subtle, and it's just because of the right belief system.
You see altars on the sides of the roads.
Yep.
Especially when you travel through the countryside, you'll start seeing the little altars.
Yeah, I love it. It's quaint. It's real. It's very genuine. There's not a lot of sort of fake stuff, not a lot of super billboards and all that. It's a very basic, lovely, sensitive sort of lifestyle that you get to experience for as many days as you're there.
As well. I do want to get back to that little vampire Bucharest. He did actually kill them by stabbing them, but then he would also bite them and suck their blood. And so not a traditional vampiric way, but that's where he got his reign. They had 2,500 folks that they interviewed as suspects to this massive. There was a massive hunt for him. And the way they found him was because the imprints of his teeth matched the imprints in the bodies. So that was kind of cool. So,
ooh.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I had another question for you, but we're out of time.
Let's do it another time.
Can we just buy some time? Who do I check to?
Actually, there's another person after me tonight, so I can't run over. But
we'll be back. How about that?
Yes.
Marie and I'll be back. Crystal, thank you for having us, though.
Thank you, guys.
I always enjoy being with your show, and Dacre, every time I hang out with you, I learn something spectacular. So thank you.
Well, check out our tours for this fall, October 27th, November 2nd or 7th, mysteriousAdventureTours.com. Check it out.
Yeah.
And Dacre, what do you have going on right now? You always have something.
Right now, I'm just resting, and I'm writing. I'm researching more stuff. I'm getting ready to do more lectures very soon, all about the scientific and medical elements of Dracula. So that's kind of always tweaking new things.
And is that DacreStoker.com where we can find these?
Yeah, you can check out my stuff there, or on Facebook or Instagram, Dacre Stoker Author. But thank you for asking.
Thank you guys so much for being on. I just love having you guys on.
Thank you.
And have fun in Wyoming.
I will always.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Gateway, broadcast live from the bluffs of the Rockies, where the strange slips through the cracks, live from United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM New Orleans. I want to thank my guests tonight, Dacre Stoker and Maria Smith. Maria is with Mysterious Adventures Tours. You got the website, mysteriousAdventurestours.com. And Dacre Stoker, you can always find him too. He's got several great books. He's world renowned and he's such a nice guy. Look him up when you get a chance. Thank you for listening to the Gateway Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow travelers of the strange and mysterious and unexplained. Until next time, stay curious and see you soon.